Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ask the Theologian on this Wednesday. Glad you are here. Hope you're having a beautiful, wonderful day and ready to go for some biblical, theological, and worldview questions and all the fun, of course, that we bring about in that. We'll come trying to be 100% biblical, and when not, call us on it. Say, stop the presses, because we want to be biblical and rightly dividing and get it right. And if we mess up, we go back and do it again. How's that sound? And we'll be entertaining, and we'll have a smile, and we'll have a little bit of grace, and sometimes we'll just be snarky. How's that? And good to see you there today. Good morning, Marvin, from a snowy Kirtland. We got a snowy Taos today, too. It's snowing here. Supposed to get some more today. Other than the fact that it's Wednesday, I hope it snows a whole bunch. The only reason I don't like snow on Wednesday is because we've got Wednesday night Bible study, and that sometimes hinders, those who can get out and get into it. But we will be online regardless of what the snow is. As long as we have electricity and internet, we're on. And so that'll be tonight, about 10 minutes after 6, typically. It's a little bit rough on the time there. On Wednesday. 2 Thessalonians, we will be in chapter 2 tonight with some fascinating stuff about the day of Christ and about the timing of the rapture that we'll begin to look at. Again, that's tonight, a little bit after 6 o'clock, mountain time, snow or no snow, wherever it is that you are, and it'll be a blessing. Hey, tomorrow night, I'm starting a new series. Now, I don't know exactly what the series is called right now in my mind, but I'll probably work through this between now and then. Right now in my mind, I'm calling it, Did It Have to Happen? And we're going to look at some prophesied events, both past and future. And we're going to see, with the giving of the prophecy, does that mean there was no way out of it? It had to happen. I think we'll learn a little bit about the nature of prophecy and even of, shall we say, God changing his mind and some of these things that we'll look at and we'll consider. And are there some contingencies built into these prophecies? So that'll start tomorrow night. Look forward to seeing you there for that. And we'll have a good time. Will be had by all. And I look forward to seeing you. Now, let's jump into some questions. If you have a question, you're watching live on randywhiteministries.org or on youtube.com. You can put the word question, or you can go to randywhiteministries.org 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or right up there, there's a little button that says Ask a Question. Slip that in, and you can do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and be all good and ready to go. And I tell you what, let's come in with a question from Alex, our friend in London. Now, he submitted this just before we left on our Thanksgiving week. And Alex is in London, and so he had to sit around waiting for us to celebrate pilgrims and Indians and all that. And now, here is your answer, Alex. Says, this question may not be an easy one. And of course, I would pick that for the first one for the day, right? Was Adam created unisex? That is, he had two sexes, male and female. I guess technically unisex would be male and female combined together. You've got, I don't know, even all the reproductive elements, perhaps. So, was Adam created unisex, had two sexes, male and female, because God called Adam them when Eve was not created yet? Now, this is going from Genesis 1. Is that 127, if I'm not mistaken? Let's find out here. And where we get the them. Yeah. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, created he him. Male and female created he them. So you got a couple of things here. You've got man. God created man. I'm pretty sure that's probably the word Adam, but I may be wrong there. But he created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, singular. But male and female created he them. And of course, this is prior to Genesis chapter 1, prior to the creation of Eve, which doesn't come about until Genesis chapter 2. Now, I'm going to say that no, Adam was not created unisex. But let's think through this here a little bit. Obviously, you can see how this was, how you could come to this conclusion. It's not an illogical question in prima facie dismissive, because we do have this, two of them together. But let's try to put a few things together. Is it possible that Genesis chapter 1 includes some understanding that is post-Genesis 1? That is, there's some wording that says, hey, we know what happened after that, and so we're going to go ahead and institute it here, even though it has not happened here. In some cases, you would call that an anachronism. That's out of its time. And perhaps you could argue in that case, male and female created he them, that if I'm going to say that Adam is not unisex, then there's only one, then Adam must be unisex. Male and female created he them must be, shall we say, an anachronism, or he's got a very modern use of pronouns. My preferred pronoun is they, them, which is one of the dumbest things ever said. So it's a legit issue. But I think that you can get by without saying that this is an anachronism. But it is commentary on the time that it is written and what needs to go there. I think, let me give another example here. Let's go to John chapter 3. And I don't know, probably about verse 13 or so, but let's see here on the right side of your screen. And verse 13, exactly. No man hath ascended up into heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven. Now, if the Son of Man is in heaven, then he can't be having a conversation face to face with Nicodemus under the cover of darkness. So the author must be saying, no man ascended to heaven, but he that came down from heaven and is now in heaven. It's a commentary that takes into account what happened later and inserts it right there. Now, it would take a little bit of work on it, and AI might be able to help us, but I imagine AI is going to make a bunch of mistakes even on this, because it's kind of a complicated formula to look up to say, where else in Scripture can we find that the after is included in the before? And I'm certain that you could find it, Probably you could find it even in things like perhaps the Exodus story. Perhaps you could find it in some of the judges, in some of the battles that took place, that, hey, we know this took place after everybody knows this. They're expecting this. So we got to put a commentary in here. And yet, as you read it, it's not really as a commentary. And so you put that. I wonder even if, I don't know that this one works, but let's try Ephesians chapter 1, verse 13, right side of the screen, in whom ye also trusted, after that ye heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation. So he puts this little commentary right here. Let's highlight it. That parenthetical phrase right there, in whom ye also trusted, the gospel of your salvation, in whom also after that you believed. He's got it in there twice, after that you believed. So after you heard the word of truth, you believed, you got your salvation. He puts those out of order, saying, my real point is you trusted in him. Oh, there's some other things. Yeah, you heard the word of truth. You believed the word of truth. You got your salvation. It's the gospel of your salvation. But I just want to talk about you got the gospel of your salvation. So I think there's the possibility then of taking Genesis 1:27 and saying this male and female created he them is inserting information that came later. Now, I do think the burden of proof does lie upon those of us who want to do that, because if we're going to say, as we do, hey, here's a literalist account that tells how this was done in Genesis chapter 1, that's what we do. But male and female created he them is not a literalist account of what took place in the first 6 days of creation. So there's a burden of proof to say, how can you say this is the literalist account, except that this didn't happen then? You got to bring some good evidence that this is the case. Now, I think there's probably some more as we think through this, but I think what you end up with is two basic choices. If male and female created he them is descriptive of what took place on the sixth day, then Adam was created unisex. If it's not descriptive of what took place on the sixth day, then he's not created unisex. Now, I would go with what you see later. So, for example, Adam comes to the conclusion, there is not a helpmeet suitable for me. There's not another one. Now, honestly, the term helpmeet, I think we have cleaned it up just a little bit. I think if we were actually to dig into the Hebrew, that Hebrew phraseology is a little bit, I'll even say illicit and explicit. And it really, I think, well, we won't go through it here because we might get ourselves in trouble on a family program. But I think if we were to dig deeply into that, it would come down to, I got parts I can't fully use. And these other animals, they have a helpmeet. They got the full set. I don't. Now, is Adam arguing that, hey, I'm unisex, I would rather not be unisex, I'd rather be, what's the opposite of unisex? Heterosex, like these animals? I think there's a few unisex plants, maybe amoebas. I don't know of any animals or creatures that are, just out of curiosity. Do we have any insects, mammals, anything like that that's unisex? And I'm not interested in plants or amoebas or things like that, but the reason I'm wondering is I don't even think Adam was looking around saying, okay, I'm kind of like this amoeba over here. But I'd rather not be like an amoeba. Is there a platypus or something like this? that, but I don't think so. So I guess maybe if you just had to, you could argue, okay, he's unisex and he finds out they're not unisex and he likes that idea better. But I think once you begin to insist that male and female created he them is descriptive of the sixth day, then you begin to have to ignore or have to reinterpret a lot of other passages, like why does he realize there's a problem? And is he just upset about being unisex when everybody else gets heterosex and this is not fair? I guess you could argue that. But I'm not so sure it'd be a great argument there. Let's go on with the question. Do we have any unisex creatures?
Earthworms, snails, and slugs.
Oh, I didn't know that. Earthworms, snails, and slugs. Okay, that's kind of like amoebas. They're just gooey amoebas, sort of. Jellyfish kind of things that live on the land. I guess theoretically you could say Adam's like, why did you make me like the slugs? I don't want to be like the slugs. I want to be like the, whatever. I just don't know if it's a great argument, but let's go on here. So anyway, if we have that, hey, we can put this out into two places. One is Genesis 1:27, male and female created he them, describes something that came later. Two is it describes something that was right then. If it describes something right then you either have to have Eve also created right then, which would conflict, it seems, with chapter 2, or you make Adam unisex. So the choices really, they go down quickly. And I think the most natural choice and the easiest choice, and really I am one that believes in the principle that take the easy one when it comes to biblical interpretation, take what's on the surface. The easy one is to say, let's read on to chapter 2 and we'll find out how male and female he created them. It's not an untrue statement. It just didn't necessarily happen right there on the sixth day, where the truth is submitted and where God somewhat wants us to know that, okay, there's not just man. Ultimately, we're going to end up with man and woman. How long is this? It seems long enough that Adam comes to the point of having some discussion about it and deciding there. Okay, let's continue. God called them God called Adam them when Eve was not yet created. The rib, the side part in Hebrew, was taken out of Adam. And in Genesis 5:2, God named them man. Can you please check what the rabbis say on this? Okay, let's put this together then. Let's go to Genesis 5:2. Actually, I'm going to start back in 5:1, where we have, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man in the likeness of God, made he him, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day they were created. You certainly do have some issues going here that this sounds like he is talking about a day, a particular day. And if we're going to read it literally, it's what we got. In the day, God created man in the likeness, made he him, male and female created he them, the same as Genesis 1:27, and blessed them. Do we somehow move away from the day right there? Well, maybe, but then we get caught on the back end, and called their name Adam. Now, Adam is the Hebrew for man, Adam. And so you could argue here, okay, is this just a singular one person is named Adam, or is this, man, they're mankind, so to speak, called their name Adam? But here, in the day when they were created, I think absolutely you can build the unisex argument. Now, is it going to be a good argument? Let's see what we can do. Now, Alex says, can you please check what the rabbis say on this? Let's go over here to Chabad and see if we can figure out what the rabbis say about this. We will go to Learning and Values, Texts and Writings, Tanakh, right there. And let's go ahead to Genesis chapter 5, and then let's show Rashi's commentary, if he's got any. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any on verse 2. This is the narrative. In the day, this tells us that on the day that he was created, he begot children. Now, that's an interesting one. This comes, it mentions here Genesis Rabbah 24/7. That is a Talmudic commentary on Genesis from the Talmudic era, I should say. Now, the Talmud, just so we understand what this is, the Talmud is kind of like when we refer to the church fathers. The early church fathers said. And when you and I, unfortunately not all Christendom does this, but when you and I read the early church fathers, we read it just like we read, what Alex writes or what Randy writes, whatever, with a grain of salt. We question it. We say, hey, they might be right on some of this. They might be wrong. And so we just take it as human writing. And it's kind of interesting because it goes back to a different time and place where you might get a little bit different perspective. A good reader of the church fathers would not say they were closer to the actual events and therefore they are more right than we are. That's just stupid things that Bible translators would come up with in order to sell their Bibles. So that would be just this huge fallacy, that the closer ones are more right. Sometimes I think you and I would agree. Sometimes it's actually not until you get far away from it that you begin to be able to see and say, oh, okay, now I get it. For example, I'll give you a biblical example of that, the closest ones to the resurrection didn't believe it. So therefore they're right because they were right there. They were seeing it and they didn't believe it. No, it was not till later that they came to believe it. That's when they put it all together and recognize it. So the later ones are more accurate than the closer ones. Okay, so we would take that with the church fathers. The Talmud is the same kind of way. There's a bunch of people that wrote. Some of the church fathers wrote some real brilliant stuff. Some of the church fathers wrote some stuff that's almost as dumb as some of the stuff I've written. And you have to take it, you look at it, you question the assumptions. So when we come over here, back to it, this Genesis Rabbah commentary, ancient Talmudic commentary, this tells us that on the day he was created, he begot children. Now, here's the challenge with that. You're like, he what? How do we know he had children on that day? It is a very consistent, I would say the most prevalent view of Cain and Abel is that they were born inside the garden. Christians almost never take that. I did take that position in my book, Tracing Cain, in which we have sold, we might be up to 15 copies now. You should get one. Tracing Cain. So if they're born inside of the garden, okay, it makes this logical, begins to come. Now, again, how do you get that? This tells us that in the day he was created, he begot children. We want to ask Rashi, say, well, wait a minute. What about there's no help suitable for me? And we would have to go back through Rashi and do that. Now, here's what I like about the Rashi commentary on Chabad. Is it doesn't say much. Rashi actually wrote a lot. He wrote a lot more than is included. This is like the abbreviated version here. But here's what it does for me. It always tells me, here is a rabbit trail that you ought to go down. Figure this out. So what we would have to do is, I would want to know more about Genesis, Genesis Talmudic and Mishnah commentary. I would want to know more about what Rashi said. I'd want to know more about what Genesis Rabbah said. Now, how do we do that and find all that? There is another website I'll show you that is not easy to use, but I'm going to bring it up over here and let you see where to go from here to try to put that together. Here is the website. It is Sepharia. It's probably Sepharia.org, Sefaria.org. Now, it is a living library of Torah. How's this? Sepharia is home to 3,000 years of Jewish texts, nonprofit organization offering free access to text, translations, commentaries, so that everyone can participate in the ongoing process of studying, interpreting, and creating Torah, which obviously has some interesting wording in and of itself. It is a Hasidic Jewish organization. It's not a Christian organization. It is... It's for Jews, but it's got some great stuff. Now, here's the problem with it. What in the world do I do with all of this? Halakha, Kabbalah, liturgy, Jewish, Tosefta, Hasidut. What am I going to read? Mishnah, Tanakh? And then even, let's click on, say, the Mishnah right here. Once you get into Mishnah, okay, what are all these weird words, and how in the world am I going to I don't even know where to go on all this. And it becomes, you can kind of read through some of these and find some of it, but some of what you can do is say, he mentioned the Genesis, what was that, Rabbah? Let's just try Rabbah. Okay. There, I get a couple, Genesis Rabbah. Okay, I can click on that, and then I can go to chapter 5 here, and I can read Hebrew. Isn't that nice? But if you go down, there is some English in there. And, okay, now here what we find is that Genesis, or that Rabbah chapter 5 is not on Genesis chapter 5. We're somewhere else in there. So you got to stab around and find it and get down to where it is. It takes a little bit of work. By the way, some of these are just in Hebrew, but fortunately, that is not a problem, because you can copy it. You have to kind of copy backwards, and it's a little bit hard to get it pasted there. But just do that and go to your favorite, here, we'll just go to Grok. Go to your favorite AI and just say, translate this for me, and paste it in there. And lo and behold, there you get the English translation, and you too can read Hebrew. Right there, it's given for you. Now, is it going to be exactly off? Who knows? Exactly right. But it's going to tell you, okay, here's where I can study. Now, I would even do some more things like, say, where in the Genesis Rabbah can I read about Genesis 5, 1 through 2? And Bereshit Rabbah, 24, 1 through 7. Okay. Or additional Bereshit Rabbah. So you had to kind of look through. That's why I said from the beginning, it's not easy. You have to be committed to finding all of that. But I know my audience, and I know that they are committed to this and that they would like to know. Inquiring minds that want to know. So what did the rabbis say about it? Unfortunately, I'm a little bit... I'll bring it this way. The rabbis don't take a unisex position, but somehow they do. And where they get this and is it legit? I'm not willing to throw it under the bus yet, even though it sounds like, that's crazy to us. I think we should follow them through. They get the idea that somehow Adam was created, Eve was created, now they have at least one child, all on the first day. How do they build that? One, they're speaking Hebrew, and so they get some Hebrew nuance. Two, they might be bringing lots of baggage in that they've carried along the way. Balance those out and see what you got. Thanks, Alex. Good question there today. Wow, I spent a lot of time on that question, didn't I? But no extra charge for that. Bob says some of the verses might be a recapitulation, kind of breakdown explanation. That's probably the way I would take it. But honestly, these things do take really digging in thoroughly and carrying this through, which I think is, I think that Christians and the church ought to be more open to, hey, let's really dig down on this and see where we're going to go. I know that a lot of people, because we've been trained wrong, a lot of people are like, where's my application for this? I just want to feel good and go home. And we ought to untrain ourselves for that. We ought to say, hey, that's intriguing. Like, can we dive down a little bit more? Can we dig through a little bit more? And you say, well, we'll never finish Genesis. We will eventually. That's why God lets us live a long life. And carry that out. I agree, Bob. John 3:13 should not be in red. Thank you. Let's take, here's a commentary from the Slavic Brotherhood. Good to see you. Not sure exactly where you're from, but glad you're here. How do you know that there are 3 Adams? Can you explain how and why 1 Corinthians 15:45? Okay. Let's go. It's an Adam-related passage, and let me get back over here. Where's Bible? There we go. Sorry about that. Let's bring up the passage of Scripture here. 1 Corinthians 15:45. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Now, the question, how do you know that there are 3 Adams? Can you explain how and why? Maybe I'm missing the third part, but maybe I'm just reading it wrong. Can you think how we get 3 out of that? Going to have Luca help me. He thinks weird. He can help me. Because I have a feeling that Slavic Brotherhood probably does have a concept of 3 out of there. I'm only seeing 2, the first and the last. Now, it does appear to me that the first man, Adam, is literally talking about the first man, Adam. And he was made a living soul. And this would be described in Genesis chapter 2, and as we've talked about already today, described in a much more general way in Genesis 1:27. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Now, when you take the last Adam, I think you have to take that figuratively. There's no way to take it literally. The last Adam is, yeah, I'm sure today we could find a lot of people named Adam. And they're probably named after the first one. Are they the last one? Well, I doubt it. They're probably going to name another one. So there's something figurative given. If you can take it literally, do it literally. That's our rule. And you can absolutely take the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit, has to be figurative of something or someone. So what is it? The last mankind? Probably not. Mankind is still here. Seems the quickening spirit has already been brought about, was made a quickening spirit. So it looks like, hey, I think we've got a metaphor of Jesus Christ. Then we would want to look into, okay, 1 Corinthians 15, it is about the resurrection. It's about the resurrection of Christ. It seems to be that he is talking about that. He even goes on in the next verse to say, howbeit that which is not, howbeit that was not first, which is spiritual, but that which is natural. Okay, there's that first one is the natural one. Afterward, that which is spiritual, the spiritual one. Okay, the first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is of the Lord from heaven. So the second man here, would we even say the second Adam or the last Adam? What have we got? Clearly, I think what we've got is some figurative language. And so how do you know that there are three Adams? First of all, I'm still, do you get three out of there anyway?
The only way is just to take 45 and say the first man, Adam, and then the last. There could be one in between the first and the last.
Yeah, okay. If you somehow read a middle Adam, the first Adam, the middle Adam, and the last Adam, but that's maybe reading between the lines more than we want to do. So I think we've got to take that second one as figurative of something. Now, when we find figurative language in the scripture, we literally take it figurative. So what is it literally figurative of? That would take, obviously, some more work on 1 Corinthians 15. I think we're going to find that it's figurative of the Lord Jesus and his resurrection and the quickening spirit, the power of the resurrection that brings is probably where we're going to come down there if we were to do that full study. I appreciate that. Thanks. And let's talk about red letters here just a moment. Bob says, I'm looking for a Bible without the red letter. Do you have your Schofield there? I want to say that the Oxford edition of the Schofield Bible is not red letter.
Well, you're wrong.
But I'm wrong. At least on yours. Must be. You can get, probably the two places to go, the KJV store or church Bible publishers, church, I think it's church Bible publishers. You can probably find a non-red letter. Now, Bob goes on to say, at least one that is correctly red lettered. I don't think you'll find that, because that's always a bit of interpretation anyway. But the red letter edition seems to completely go by the original red letter edition that was done by Red Skelton. And that was a joke there, by the way, just in case you didn't pick that up. And nobody seems to have updated it or done, they just go with that. I like non-red letter. I also kind of would like non-headings That's even harder to find because the heading kind of throws you off a little bit. You read the heading and you take it. Okay, this is where we start talking about. And that is where, here you go. It's not in print, but Biblify. There's no red letters and there's no headings. The only thing we do have the chapter designations and the verse designations, and carry that out. And there is a way to, I don't know, somewhere in the settings over there somewhere, but there is also a way, if you prefer it to read in paragraph form rather than having the verses out here. I kind of like the ability of finding the verses real easy, so I go with that. But just print out Biblify. There you go. And you'll have it. Thanks. Appreciate that. And Adam, second Adam would be figuratively an archetype. Archetype? I think you're supposed to say it. Archetype. The first of his kind. Randy mentions I don't know if it's this exact Bible, but he sent me a link the other day for this Bible from the KJV store. What's that called, Randy? Do you remember that link you sent me? That was like, I got Bible envy, and I'm not usually, there are preachers that they get a new Bible every month because but man, I looked at that, I thought, that is the most beautiful Bible ever done. But I looked at the price and decided not to get it. Okay, one day, good to see you. One day, help me out. New Jersey, I'm going to get this right here. One day I'm going to get it right. Did God establish the animal sacrifice for the forgiveness of sins or as a confirmation? I think that's supposed to be confirmation of his covenant. I've heard it taught that Isaiah 53 was more about the new covenant rather than PSA. Sometimes you all abbreviate, and I don't have the gift of interpretation. That'll come to me in a moment. But animal sacrifice was before the covenant. Because I think the earliest we see it, you could argue it's when God made clothing for Adam and Eve. But probably the first we really see it as mankind giving an animal sacrifice to God is Genesis chapter 3, 4, in which you've got Cain and Abel. And then even sin lieth at the door, thou must master it, can very easily be understood. A sin offering is right there. You need to take your sin offering and carry it about. It appears that the law, the Torah, which came later, was a user's guide to what, shall we call it, natural law. The Torah pre-existed, natural law is expressed in the Torah law. Torah law is natural law, and natural law pre-existed it. So it was there before it was stated as there. In which case, I think it would be hard to argue that it's confirmation of his covenants. Unless you want to be a covenant theologian, I don't. But a covenant theologian reads a bunch of covenants prior to that time. But they're not biblical, they're not textual, they're not there. And so, that becomes a rather challenge to deal with. So I think you have to say that probably I would guess, but this would have to be a guess, that in the slaying of the animal to cover Adam, that God also gave some teaching there. And the teaching was, now when there is sin, you will kill an animal like this. You will bring it before me. I suspect there's teaching there that we don't know about. It is an argument from silence, so it's not the strongest argument, and you would not want to be dogmatic about it, therefore. But nonetheless, you've got that. So back to one day's question here: did God establish animal sacrifice for forgiveness of sins or as a confirmation of His covenant? I'm going to say, if that's my two choices, probably for the forgiveness of sins rather than a confirmation of anything. Now, I might want to say, I might want a third option. Is it for the forgiveness of sins, or is it for approaching unto God? Like Hebrews, 10 perhaps says that the shedding of the blood of bulls and goats cleanses the flesh. Good for the cleansing of the flesh, a little bit of a paraphrase there. So maybe it's a cleansing kind of thing more than the forgiveness of sins, though we might be splitting theological hairs there. But bring that together, I think I'm gonna lean towards the forgiveness of sins issue. Aha, thank you. Penal substitutionary atonement. Why didn't we know that one? So let me pick that up then. So I'm gonna lean towards forgiveness of sins, and then the sentence goes on. I've heard it taught that Isaiah 53, like a lamb led to the slaughter, often taken the suffering servant passage, often applied to the Lord Jesus Christ, was more about the new covenant rather than penal substitutionary atonement. I at least like the last part of that sentence. I don't think Isaiah 53 is about penal substitutionary atonement. I am not an adherent of penal substitutionary atonement. I don't think you can argue that when a person brought a sin offering, whether it would be Cain, who didn't bring his, or someone in Leviticus, under the age of the Levites, when they're bringing their offering for their particular sin, their sin offering, I don't think that is a penal substitutionary atonement, that this bull is receiving my punishment. Rather, the bull is a sacrifice on my part, because that's an expensive thing. It's a sacrifice on my part. There wasn't, by the way, in a sin offering, there was no cheap offering. This is not where you brought the 2 turtle doves. This was something that really was going to cost you. So I am, in the sin offering, I'm bringing something that I am going to sacrifice to show, wow, that sin cost me. But God, in His grace, is going to atone for that sin by the bringing of this sacrifice. It certainly is grace, and there's a lot of faith there. It's different than by grace through faith, not of works, because there's certainly works involved in bringing those sacrifices. So I would say Isaiah 53 is not about penal substitutionary atonement, either of the sacrifices or of the Messiah, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I would say Isaiah 53 probably, let's go ahead and assume it's messianic. Although in my Thursday night study that's going to begin this week, we probably will look at these kinds of issues to say, did Isaiah 53, which seems to prophetically talk about the death, burial, and resurrection of the Lord, did that have to happen? I think I would put 30 cents down on, you could take Isaiah 53 not to be about the Messiah. You could take it to completely be about the sin offering, the Levitical sin offerings. So in that sense, Isaiah 53 is a bit of a confirmation of the covenant, because by that time it already came. I just was arguing prior to that. So it might be a little, I don't know if anachronistic is the right word. But I don't think either one of those is about penal substitutionary atonement. Now, if you do apply Isaiah 53 to the Messiah and insist that it is absolutely on the Messiah, and it's an odd argument because now it is, because it's a done deal, but it didn't have to be, is going to be my argument on Thursday. But I want to go. How's this? I'm circling this plane so many times you got dizzy. Let's go to Ephesians 1:7. In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, according to the riches of his grace. Isaiah 53 is about the redemption we have through his blood. If you put it only in a pre-Christ setting, it's about the atonement that comes through the blood of the sacrifice. I hope that's helpful. I think penal substitutionary atonement is a doctrine that got made up and then got footnoted enough times that it became true, and yet is not. Unfortunately. I'm checking out the comments here. Let's see. If you're still here, Sempiternal, I probably pronounced that wrong. The question is, how do I let it go? Just let it go. Let it go. Well, obviously, there's some more context there. I'm going to go ahead and take the question here. Obviously, there is more context. Welcome to this edition of Psychobabble with Dr. White. Sempiternal would like to know, how do I let it go? Well, if you're talking about something physically, you release your grip. Got that one out. If you're talking about something emotionally, it is a much more difficult decision. Let me even back up a little bit, because the easier one, I think, let's put these in three categories. You can let it go physically. That one's easy. You can let something go mentally, and you can let something go emotionally. They get progressively more difficult. But mentally is not that easy. I'll give you an illustration from the 6th grade in my life. I always spelled the word they just like it should be spelled. T-H-A-Y. I mean, you hear it there. A. How would you spell something that says A? Maybe I would use a E. No self-respecting 6th grader would do that. So I always spelled. And I had up to the 6th grade. I don't know why nobody stopped me before, but, they are going T-H-A-Y, 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 T-H-A-Y. Maybe I was not the brightest student, but nonetheless, I spelled it, what do you call that, phonetically perhaps? They. Do you know how hard it was? Mrs. Mixon, my 6th grade teacher, she decided she was going to break me of it. And she did this, well, I suppose today it would be considered humiliating, but we were tougher back then in the 70s. We didn't have a fragile psyche like they do today. So she got this poster board. It was literally, it was a poster board. And she said, I want you really big, with a really big marker, I want you to write the word they spelled correctly. And so I did. T-H-E-Y. She said, okay, now, right above your desk, we are going to hang it from the ceiling. She did. I sat there with they. I still have a complex over it. No, I don't. I know how to spell they. Literally every day I'd come, I'd sit down and look up, and hovering over my head is how you're supposed to spell they. Since the 6th grade, I've never misspelled they. I always spell it right. But it was so hard to get over that, to let that mental thing go, that I needed like neon lights flashing. No, that's wrong. But that's the way it seems. But that's the way it feels. But that's the way it should be. Well, you can argue that all day long, but nobody spells it that way, and therefore it's wrong. So a slap across the face sometimes will get us to say, okay, I got to let that go. To let something go mentally, first of all, you got to realize that you're holding the wrong thing mentally. Then you have to sort of open your mind up to, what are they thinking? How are they thinking this? Why am I wrong here? There's a little process that you go through, but mentally, the best thing is figure out is do some science. Say, okay, I want to do some investigation here. I want to see I want to look in a dictionary in that case, and find out. It's just, we got 26 letters. We put them together, and we come together and determine this is the way you do it. And so that is the right way, because there's a committee on the order of spelling. So you put it down and say, okay, maybe there's a better way to spell they, but this is the right way to spell they. It's not the better way, it's the way everybody does it. And so then it's just a reminder. I'm wrong, they're right, I want to be right, I'm going with it. Hardest part is sometimes seeing it, but then reminding yourself. I remember when I learned what the kingdom actually was compared to what I'd been taught in seminary. And I had so much build the kingdom, advance the kingdom terminology in my brain, in my mouth, deep into my soul, that I bet it took me 6 months to rid my mouth of talking about the kingdom in the wrong way. Takes a long time to do that. And that's just, that's even after you learn how to spell they, you got muscle memory and it goes through there. So it's difficult to do. But you hang a poster above your head, whatever. Now, sometimes emotionally, it's really the same kind of process to let go of something emotionally. You either are going to realize that I'm wrong, and we do get it wrong in our emotions. But I just feel like, that is the way you feel, no doubt about it. But the way you feel is not necessarily right. The way you feel doesn't necessarily line up with reality. It might very well. So you look at it and say, okay, I've got these emotions. Are they right? Sometimes we need to get someone else's advice on that. And I used Grok earlier. There is some advantage of even taking like AI and saying, always give it the qualification. I want you to be scathing. When I was 3, my mama told me that I was ugly, and I've felt ugly ever since. Am I right feeling this way? Analyze my emotions. Get some third party. You can get it free. You don't have to pay somebody for this. Ask a few people around. But be careful, because both AI and the people around you, they naturally know the answer that you want to hear. So I would even say, if I was using AI, give me the answer I don't want to hear. I want to see this from another perspective. Go to a friend, say, give me the answer I don't want to hear, but that you think is right on this issue. Now, don't get mad at them as soon as they do. That's a wrong emotion. So I was like, okay, I asked for it. You gave it to me. I'm going to chew on this a little bit. I'm going to see. And then work through that and go with it. And then eventually you just have to decide, okay, here is an emotion I've got. I want to say one more thing. You might find out it's the wrong emotion. You might find out it's the right emotion, but absolutely nothing can be done with it, so there's no value in carrying it. You're not going to fix it. You're not going to do anything except make yourself old, crotchety, and ugly. So why do it? So you realize that either because it's wrong or because it can't ever be fixed, that you're going to let it go. And then you're going to remind yourself, and probably you're going to remind some others too. You're going to spell they on a big poster board and hang it above your head. You're going to tell your friends, hey, I know that I fill in the blank. And I'm getting rid of that in my life, and I want you to help me. When that seeps out, I want you to tell me. And maybe you even come up with a code word, code blue. I got a little code blue going on. Whatever it is, bring that up. You can do it. Anybody can. I learned how to spell they. I think all of us can do it. Now, some of them are not. Some of them are a lot more difficult than others. But here's Gerard in the Netherlands talks about the dangers of AI as interpretation of Scripture. I would agree. There certainly are dangers. It gives an article on Christianity Today, which is one of the worst publications ever known to man. It's a evangelical garbage publication, but nonetheless, even a broken clock can be right twice a day. And it's from 2023, it looks like. AI, ChatGPT, exegetical tool, Bible, Scripture, Sermon on the Mount. Probably if you do a little search on that. This is why AI is dangerous and totally flies against Psalm 12, 6 and 7, which is the Word of God preserved for us. I think AI is dangerous and a blessing. And there's a lot of dangerous blessings out there. There are some things that AI as a linguistic tool can do very, very good. It's called let's see, NLS, natural language. I think it's NLS, natural language system, if I'm not mistaken. And it really can give you a strict and literalist interpretation. But the problem is, what's dangerous is the person who puts in the prompt. You prompt it wrong, garbage in, garbage out. It's a computer. That's all it is. And you know how we used to, I suppose now we still do, but not nearly as much. But Gerard's old enough to remember, and I am too. We used to get wrong numbers. The phone used to ring and people would answer it. It was this curious thing. It was on the wall. Bring! We didn't even know who it was, and we would pick it up. And, they would say, hey, is Susie there? And we would immediately say, you must have the wrong number. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. There's no problem. Good luck. Sometimes they would say, well, I dialed 817-623-4506. I said, this is 817-623-4507. My bad. I'm sorry about that. Hope you have a good day. Hey, what are you doing for lunch now? You sound like a nice guy. Some people got married by wrong numbers. They even made a movie, didn't they? Sorry, wrong number. What was that movie about? Sorry, wrong number. Check it. Is that a love story? I only remember the name of the movie. But my point is, the whole dial the phone thing, it could do great things for you, and it could totally mess you up. And the input. Now, the one thing we do have on AI that goes beyond that is that it does attempt to interpret for you. And in attempting to interpret for you, there it can really make a lot of mistakes. I think you have to kind of tell it, this is how I want you to interpret it for me. It's one benefit of an account that you have for a little while, because that account learns. We don't do it that way. My account knows that I want a strictly literalist view, and it knows I want it out of King James. And it never brings me a metaphorical worldview or a metaphorical hermeneutical view. It never brings me King James, non-King James, because I trained it along the way. So AI is kind of like a good work dog. Just like Strong's Concordance, it can go wrong because here's two words, but they don't. Yeah, it's the same word, but it's totally different context, so it means something completely different. Well, it's not the concordance fault if you buy into something like that. So, yeah, good word there. I am out of time, but I am going to close out with something that Char 23 says on YouTube. Genesis 2:18 seems to say that Adam was not unisex. I think I agree with you here. The Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him." So, yeah, it almost seems like, I'm going to back myself out of this here in a second, but it almost seems like if it was good, if God created man unisex, then it would be good for him to be alone. There would be no need for anything different. But here it's not good. Now, what would be interesting here, and this might even be where the rabbis come in, at the end of the sixth day, God does look at things and say, this is very good. But it's not very long. Hey, this is not good. So what's up with that? And how do we put that together? Fortunately, I'm out of time. But I do appreciate each one of you being here today from Taos, New Mexico, across America and around the world. And I got questions that I didn't get to. My bad. I'm working on those. We'll get caught up. We'll be back tomorrow for Ask the Theologian. And we'll be back tonight about 10 minutes after 6 Mountain Time. And we will look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We'll have a good time with that. Thanks for being here. RandyWhiteMinistries.org. There is an Ask a Question button there. You can use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can put it in anonymously if you like by just skipping the name, or make up a name if you have to. Or you can put your name in, and if you put your name and your email address, I'll let you know when we get to it, because we don't always move timely here on our program, because we're going to live a long time. Thanks for being here with us. I do appreciate it. And hey, check out that series we'll have tomorrow night, Did It Have to Happen?, which might have a new name by tomorrow night. Thanks for being here with us. I appreciate you being here. God bless. And I should turn off the ringer, shouldn't I? Y'all take care.